Ro amohela ka diatla tse mofuthu mona go Leihlo la Sechaba ka lebitso ke ene Mokoena mme ke emetse le Thabo Mathatho yena o tla ba teng bekeng e tlang. Kgwedi ya Pudungwana e hlwailwe ho hlokomedisa setjhaba ka ditokelo tsa batho ba phelang ka boqhwala. Lefapha la Basadi, Batjha le batho ba phelang ka boqhwala le rerile ho ba le matsholo pakeng tsa la 3 kgweding ena e hodimo ho fihlella ka la 3 kgweding ya Tshitwe. Advocate Joyce Maluleke o na le rona phirimaneng ena ho bua ka taba ena ya bohlokwa. Advocate Maluleke ro amohela mona ho Leihlo la Sechaba.
Ke a leboga, ke dumedise le ba mamedi.
Advocate, ha re qale ka ho bua ka kgwedi ena ya bohlokwa ya e hlwailweng ho bua ka ditaba tsa batho ba phelang ka boqhwala.
Di 3 tsa December ke batla thoma ka di 3 not ka di 3 tsa December not di 3 tsa November. Di 3 tsa December ke International Day of Disability. The whole world commemorate or celebrate disability to look at their abilities, their challenges, what contribution do they make, the communities that they live in, everything about persons with disabilities. So South Africa decided that the 3rd of November will be our national day so that we commemorate the rights of persons with disabilities for the whole month. So from 2013, South Africa has been celebrating DREM, we call it DREM, the National Disability Rights Awareness Month, where government, private sector, civil society, and labor do something in order to ensure that we recognize and promote the rights of persons with disabilities. Throughout the year, yes, but this month, we come together and consolidate all those rights that we have been promoting, but also to assess progress, whether we've progressed or not.
So, Advocate Maluleke, ke kgwedi kaofela ho tloha ka di 3 tsa November ho fihla ka di 3 tsa December. Ebe le na le mananeo a jwang a leng hore le tlo a isa setjhabeng ho bontsha ditokelo tsa batho ba?
South Africa, this administration, the 6th administration, in a national strategic framework where it had identified 7 priorities that it will focus on. So what we've done, we have allocated 4 themes over the 4 weeks. The first week, we're looking at National Priority 3, Education, Skills, and Health. Second week, it's National Priority 2, where we are looking at economic transformation and job creation. Week 3, we're focusing on National Priority 1, a capable, ethical, and developmental state. And week 4, we're looking at National Priority 6, which is social cohesion and safe communities. So all government departments that have a responsibility under a certain priority area, they will have to organize certain activities that promote access to that priority. For example, National Priority 3 is Education, Skills and Health. So the Department of Basic Education and the Department of Higher Education and Training have a responsibility to host certain activities. I would just like also to show what we've done now at the presidential level. In 2021, we held a summit on access to quality education. As a department, we partnered with the Department of Higher Education to host that summit in order for us to evaluate whether persons with disabilities access their rights. There is a there is a white paper on the rights of persons with disabilities that the Department of Basic Education is responsible for. So what we done was to assess the white paper, and we agreed that it needs to be reviewed. So last year we focused on National Priority 2, which was access to economic empowerment for persons with disabilities. This year we're focusing on access, we call it universal access to transport for persons with disabilities. We know that transport is a major impediment to persons with disabilities. Whether they want to go to school, they need transport, and transport is a challenge. Whether they want to go to work, they need transport, is a challenge. We all know that most of the taxis, if not 99% of them, they don't stop for persons with disabilities to get them on their taxis. So it's a challenge. Whether they want to go to health or they just want to go to a mall, they need transport.
Advocate
they have
Maluleke.
to pay.
Advocate
Yes.
Maluleke. O buile
Yes.
ka hore le bile le summit selemong se fetileng. Jwale o tla tseba he hore
Yes.
diboka tsena kapa di summit tse re bang le tsona re qoqa ka ntho tsa bohlokwa. Ebe summit eo le kgonne ho kenya tshebetsong tse ding tsa dintho tseo leng hore le dumellane ka tsona.
Yes, ke tlhalositse gore then we are reviewing the white paper from the summit. Persons with disabilities, they complained about access to education. So that resulted in us, in the Department of Basic Education, reviewing the white paper. And as I said, last year, we had one on economic empowerment. This year, we're focusing on transport. And as Nekicho, transport is one of the biggest challenges. So we are hoping for it 7 and 8.
Advocate Maluleke.
Yes.
Hari papatsong re lo patala dikoloto ka pele re tla khutla re nka mo re sileng. Mui re a leboha ha o ntse o dutse le rona ntse re na le Advocate Maluleke mme re bua ka ditokelo tsa batho ba phelang ka boqhwala. Advocate Maluleke, pele re ya papatsong o buile ka taba tsa bohlokwa haholo, empa ke batla hore re shebe theme kapa ona moelelo wa selemo sena o re the theme is Consolidate and Accelerate the Rights of Persons with Disabilities into the Future. O tla tseba he hore boqhwala bo tla hangata. Batho ba bang wa bo bona boqhwala ba bona, batho ba bang boqhwala ba bona ha bo bonahale. Disabilities e tla ka tsela tse ngata. Ebe le ananela jwang boqhwala bo fapafapaneng.
As a department, we are busy with 6 manuals. The manual says to thusang batho gore ba kgone understand, more especially government, because government is the biggest service provider. So we are looking at a manual on all kinds of disabilities, whether it's mental disability, whether it's physical disability, any disability, in order for us to be able to educate people, also the community. So it's not just only for government. Government is for providing services, but the manuals will also help the communities so that we identify a disability aging, because the parents were saying we didn't know what was wrong with this child until it was very late. So re batla gore di manuals tseo di thuse bana ka yona ntho ka bana ka nnete ba bang ba na le learning disability, ba bang a ba bone, ba bang ha ba bone ha ba utlwe, ba bang o ka se bone gore ba kula, they live in their own world. Ganti ke disability le yona eo go na le disability ya albinism. Albinism, even though it's the skin, but ba sokola gagolo batho bao ka bane ho na le di-beliefs batho ba tshepa gore if o ka thola letlalo la motho o nang le albinism or o ka thola monwana wa gae or whatever o tla ba rich. So ba bang ba bolaiwa ba disappeara dilo tse tshwanang le tseo. So we want to educate communities gore o ka se be rich ka o thola skin sa albino or whatever. You just have to go and work and make sure that you reap what you've worked for. Ska ba thola tšhelete mahala fela o bolaye batho o utlwise batho botlhoko.
A na le bona tswelopele setšhabeng ka di-stereotype tseo tse o buileng ka tsona kapa ntho tse seng nnete tseo batho ba di behang ho batho ba phelang ka boqhwala le se le fihlelletse tswelopele hakakang ho ruteng setšhaba ho ananela ditokelo tsa batho ba phelang ka boqhwala?
Ho na le di-province tse 2 tse ne le tsona tse ne di tshwenya gagolo, Mpumalanga le KwaZulu-Natal. Ra bona gore jwanong go ba ngcono it's becoming lesser and lesser because bana ba na le albinism ne ba bolaiwa ne ba disappeara and the parents ne di end up di ba kwalla ko ntlong ka bana ba tshaba gore ha ba itse go tlo etsagalang ko bona ko ntle kwa mara Mpumalanga I think wa gopola de gona le story sa ba ileng ba ilo thuba lebitla la motho wa albino ba nka di-parts tsa gae mara a e sa le go tshwana le pele ra bona gore go na le progress and le maponesa ba tshwara go na le kopanelo ya di-directors general e ba e bitsang JCPS, it's Justice Crime Prevention Strategy and Security Strategy. And they met specifically to discuss how to address issue ya crime against persons with albinism. So raibona gore ya patala jwanong KZN and Mpumalanga setse go le ngcono a go sa crime eo ha isa etsagala gagolo.
Advocate Maluleke, motho a ka re melao ya rona mona South Africa e metle haholo ebile lefatshe ka bophara ba e ananela ba bolela re le constitution ya rona e ntle empa bothata ke hore re kenye tshebetsong kapa hona to implement melao ena ke eng e thata hore re kenye melao e tshebetsong hantle e atlehe?
There are many reasons for that. One, yes, public servants don't do their work. There are many public servants that are doing their utmost best. They go all out, even beyond the call of their duty. So, Ngasiri is all public servants, it's some. But the success of legislation depends on everyone, government, and the people who must benefit from it. Yes, sometimes one can say they do not know about the laws, but even those that know about the law sometimes don't come out to claim their rights. But more than anything, I think the collapse of a family, it's one of the challenges that we're experiencing in South Africa because prevention starts from communities and communities are built by families. So individuals in the families and individuals in the communities, if we can work together with government, we will be able to address many of the challenges. It's not only violence. Violence, most of the time it comes to government after it has happened. But the communities can stop it, that it doesn't happen. So that's why I say all of us together, we can be able to make sure that the laws are implemented.
Mohlomong Advocate, ha re shebe the National Disability Policy, re nke nako ena ho ruta setjhaba hore na e reng ka ditokelo tsa batho ba phelang ka boqhwala.
Yes, the law, the policy that we have now is the white paper on the rights of persons with disabilities, yes, which has got nine pillars. So the pillars, let me just speak about one. A reasonable accommodation. How do we accommodate persons with disabilities? Sometimes it comes with costs because you have to redesign your office or you have to buy more equipments or a stationery or whatever that would assist persons with disabilities, but all of us have to do that because we are part of the community and they are part of the community. There's another one which is also a challenge, like
Advocate,
transport.
e re tshware hanyane ho tshe re lo patala dikoloto tsa rona ka mabenkeleng re tla khutla re nka mo hape. Mokgahlelo kwa boraro lo qetela wa lenaneo la Leihlo la Sechaba re ntse re dutse le Advocate Maluleke ya buang ka taba bohlokwa ya batho ba phelang ka boqhwala. Advocate, pele re ya papatsong o buile taba bohlokwa re ne re hlaha batho leseding ka national policy ya disability mme o tshwere mona le mane o ka qetella mo sileng teng.
Reasonable accommodation, or whether in employment or in access to your office, you need to ensure that persons with disabilities banally reasonable access. You might have to rearrange your office and sometimes pay more money for them, but also. One, I think Pillar 5, reducing economic vulnerability for persons with disabilities. As I had said, transport is one of the areas that causes economic vulnerability for persons with disabilities because someone can take a taxi, ka 15 rand, ayoko mall. But person with disabilities cannot do that. Tshwantse Uber and pay 100 rands. But also in terms of employment, persons with disabilities complain they are not employed. Most of the time we take them through training. These trainings are the SITA training and all those things are not employed and not employing them. They are tired of being trained. They want to be employed. But also as government.
Taba bohlokwa haholo e hobaneng bahiri ba bangata kapa employers banka batho ba ileng hore they are able to batho ba itekanetseng ebe ba sia batho ba sa itekanelang ha ba fe menyetla ya mesebetsi ke eng seo le setsang ho netefatsa hore batho ba na leng boqhwala ba fumana menyetla ya mesebetsi.
Ka pele ke araba ke batla gore ke clarify batho ba na leng disability, they are able like us, those that don't have a mental disability. Yeah. It's just that they are human beings with a certain disability, either physical disability. So in terms of thinking, they can do the work, some of them can think better than us. Yeah. So it's important that we know that they are capable to think and apply or learn like us and implement like us. Now, in terms of you will remember the Employment Equity Act that required appointment of persons with disabilities, 2%. That one, I think from private sector, many private sector companies, they have surpassed the 2%. Some of them are at 3%. I think with private sector, it's easy. If they want to appoint somebody, they can just go to a university and appoint someone. With government, because of the advertising and you have to comply with the laws. If you didn't, somebody will take you to court and whatever. It's lower than in the private sector. Government, for now, I think it's about 1.54% instead of 2%. But what has happened at the last week cabinet, the president has increased because in terms of the white paper for persons with disabilities, by 2030, 7%, a public service should have employed 7% of persons with disabilities. So at the rate we might not be able to reach that. So in order to address that, the president or cabinet, let me say cabinet, has taken a decision for 2024, 2025, government will have to appoint 3% of persons with disabilities. And every year, 25, 26, it has to be 4%, just like that, increase until it gets to 7%. And cabinet itself will be monitoring to ensure that government employs persons with disabilities. And one other thing, cabinet has removed the issue of requiring experience or of advertising. Government can now go and headhunt persons with disabilities in order to make sure that they are also brought into public service and they are represented according to the white paper.
Advocate Maluleke, ha jwale the socio-economic condition kapa ona maemo a moruo le ho phela setjhabeng batho ba bangata tlhoko ya mosebetsi ke ntho e leng hore ke bothata bo boholo o fumana hore batho ba itekanetseng ba kgona hore ba etse meralo e meng hore na ba ka etsa jwang le sebetsa jwang le mekgatlo on the grassroots level ba leng setjhabeng hore le tsebe ditlhoko tsa batho ba nang le boqhwala.
Government department engwe le engwe, all government departments di na le disability unit. All provinces in the Premier's office go na le Office of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and the departments, provincial departments, ba na le a unit ya disability. And the municipalities, some of the municipalities, you might find that the office is not functioning or whatever, but they have an office of persons with disabilities. So in that way, we coordinate the meetings at national, provincial, and local government in order to come together and address issues of persons with disabilities. But also, there is a presidential working group on disability. This presidential working group meets with the president once a year, but it meets with the department on a quarterly basis. There are also many organizations of persons with disabilities. So we call it a disability machinery, where the organizations of persons with disabilities and the officials from government of the offices of persons with disabilities meet to discuss and come up with strategies to address issues of disability. For example, now there's a task team constituted by the Presidential Working Group on Disability, the organizations of persons with disabilities, and PELSAP, and our department, the Department of Justice, and the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, where we are working on training government officials and to come up with a strategy to ensure that the sign language legislation is implemented and enforced, and also to educate the public about that.
O ka re bolela hore na batho ba batlang ho kopana le lefapha la hao ba ka kopana le lona jwang hobane batho ba bangata ba re ha ba so bone tshebetso ya lefapha hantle.
Okay, most persons with disabilities ba na le di organizations tse ba berekang le tsona. So we as a department, we are not meeting with individual persons unless we have an event where we go to a place and we invite people. But we work most of the time with the organizations. So if they go to the organization that they belong in and say the Department of Women, we want access to the Department of Women, they will be able to tell them that we meet, how we meet. But also just to say, anyone who wants to communicate with me, they can send an email. You can put my email here on the screen, so that anyone who wants to communicate, they can send. If they have a complaint or whatever, they can send an email to me.
Advocate le wila hola re file nako ya re buisane le wena re le bua mosebetsi o leng hore lo etsetsa batho ba phelang ka boqhwala. Mo re fihlile pheletsong ya lenaneo la kajeno e ba le rona hape bekeng e tlang ka Manta hona mona ho SABC2. O ka re ngolla ho Leihlo la Sechaba @sabc.co.za. Re teng le ho Facebook, mme lenaneo la rona le a fumaneha ho YouTube. Ho utlwa ka lenaneo le latelang, hlwaya tsebe ho Thobela FM, Lesedi FM le Motsweding FM ka Manta hoseng. Haeba boroko.